So first I wanted to let everybody know that there are 166 people participating in the Vajrasattva retreat from afar. And 74 of those are inmates, which is just wonderful. So when you think for a moment, inmates reciting the mantra and purifying all beings around them, you know that that's going to have a very positive effect in the prisons. So it's a very good thing. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about visualization. This is one of the methods that we use in our meditation practice quite extensively in Tibetan Buddhism. And so the first thing is this word visualization is really not a very good translation, because when we hear that, we think about vision, we think about our eyes. And when we're visualizing in meditation, we're using our imagination. We're not using our senses at all. We're using our imagination. And so we, not only do we imagine sights, but also we can imagine smells and sensations, feelings, all kinds of things. And so when we think about using our imagination, it's really helpful to approach it as a very creative, artistic, playful process. I don't know that we think of that way very often. It's like, oh, geez, I can't get the image, or, you know. But it's really helpful to play with it. Think of it in terms of something very creative. And that really opens it up to become a very rich practice then. A lot of people think they can't visualize, but, you know, we do that all the time. If I ask you to think of the house that you were raised in, an image comes into your mind. That's visualizing. If I ask you to think of your good friend, their face pops into your mind. That's visualizing. So we do it all the time. I don't know about you, but I catch myself daydreaming. And daydreaming, I'm using images continually. Yeah. So if I think about an experience in the past, I have all these images of that experience in my mind. We even construct future that way. You know, I'm constructing something that's going to happen in the future. I do it with images. Yeah, that's visualizing. So we all visualize a lot. So what we want to do is harness this power of the mind that can create images. And we want to use it to help transform our mind, because we can do that. So if we think about it on a worldly way, world-class athletes visualize that they're going to jump a certain distance, they're going to run a certain speed. And there's been studies that show when they use the power of imagination, actually their performance improves. So on a worldly way, even this works. Or we can think about great actors who learn the lines, learn about this character, and they really start embodying that character. And we can see the great actors, when we see them perform, they actually transform. They become that part. So it's a very powerful process. But of course, using it that way, you know, pretty much keeps us stuck in samsara. Doesn't have very much utility. But if you think for a moment to start using the imagination by bringing to mind the image of a Buddha, bringing to mind the enlightened qualities, then what that does is actually help us develop our own qualities much faster. So it's very powerful, this process. So when we're visualizing, we work on two aspects simultaneously. They're translated as clarity and divine dignity, but those, again, those words are kind of misleading. So the Tibetan meaning of clarity is making something appear. So we make something appear in the mind and then we focus on it. So in this case, we make the image of Vajrasattva appear in our mind and we focus on it. Mm-hmm. And then as our concentration develops, the image becomes much more in focus and much more detail comes. So when you're first doing this, it's fine if it's kind of hazy, you're not getting very much detail, that's fine, there's no problem there. The thing you don't want to do is try to really force to get a very clear image, because what does that do to the mind? Makes it tight, you get frustrated, it's like, geez, I can't do it. Not helpful. So whatever, you know, we get is fine. Even if it's just a ball of light, that's fine. You know, be content with that for now, it's fine. And then the second aspect, divine dignity, is actually working with our feeling of what it would be like to be in the presence of an enlightened being. What would that be like? And then, you know, so you call up the qualities of that being, you know, and if that seems like too far away, you know, even think of being in the presence of the Dalai Lama. What would that be like? I think it's quite wonderful, you know. Even when he's on the stage and we're way far away looking at him, we can feel the wonderment of that, yeah. So we also can take it a step further, you know, what would it be like for me to have those enlightened qualities? Think about a day when your mind had no judgment, had no irritation, had no comparing, had no anger, had no attachment, had no jealousy. That the mind just was resting in love, compassion, feeling that for all beings equally. So then we start, that starts touching our heart, doesn't it? It's like, phew, yeah, that would be pretty lovely. So we call that up then when we have this clarity, this image in the mind of Vajrasattva, then we call up all these qualities. And when we're working on these two aspects of clarity and divine dignity, the most important one is to get the feeling of being in the presence of an enlightened being. That's the most important one. Mm-hmm. So when we're doing the Vajrasattva practice, it's helpful to have an idea of what Vajrasattva looks like before we try to make the image appear in our mind. So to study a tanka, or, you know, we have these cards in front of us to, you know, get a sense of kind of what he looks like. It's very helpful. And then the sadhana starts out that we visualize Vajrasattva about 4 inches above our head. And so one method that you can use is to actually put your hand on your head and then put it about 4 inches above that. And then the mind kind of follows that, and now you know where you're placing him on a lotus and a moon disc. So it's helpful to kind of, okay, now I know where he is. Yeah? And then to think about visualizing what he looks like. You know, he's made of light. So the method that I use is I think of a hologram. And you know, when I was younger, I watched a lot of Star Trek. So the thing about Scotty beamed me up. And so when they were beamed up back onto the ship, they were beamed up in the form of a hologram. So that's kind of what I think about. This transparent, figure, image that's shimmering, transparent, made of light. And so that helps me think about then what Vajrasattva looks like. And then, of course, once you get that image, again, to keep coming back to the feeling of what does it feel like to be in the presence of somebody that has perfected all their qualities? What does that feel like? I have another description from another practice that I also like to think about. His body diffuses transparent light, which, although insubstantial, like a rainbow, fills infinite realms. So that's another nice image. So, you know, whatever images work to help you get this idea in the mind of what Vajrasattva is, or any Buddha is. And so we generate these images in the context of our understanding of emptiness. Because if we visualize Vajrasattva not as something solid and inherent and permanent, but more, you know, like this hologram, more like made of light, shimmering, then that starts helping us break down our habit of viewing everything so concrete, so solid, so permanent, so non-changing. So it really helps us work with that. And then we add the bodhicitta motivation, and now we have a very powerful image, very powerful practice going on. They also say that it's very helpful when you're imagining the white light and the nectar flowing into your crown, that you can imagine it kind of like when you step into a shower and turn the shower on, when the shower hits you. So it's not anything, you know, harsh, but it's powerful, you know, you feel it. So you can kind of use that image as a way for the light and nectar to start coming through your crown. And then Venerable Chödrön also always recommends that as we're doing the visualization, if we're doing purifying the negativities of the body, and we have the light streaming down the body, that as you do that, you let the light and nectar go through every part of the body. If you're doing the purifying the speech, and so it's like a dirty glass filled with liquid and the stuff rises to the top, same kind of thing. As it rises up, this white light and nectar goes through every part of the body. And pay attention to those parts of the body you want to skip over. Really get yourself to go there, yeah, in a very gentle, loving, joyous way. And then at the end, you know, we remind ourselves to think, I have actually purified all negativities. And then we have a very powerful transforming practice.